there. One shot. All right. Podcast episode 4. I'm here with my good friend Oscar. Oscar, nice to see you here. Today we're going to talk about tech and being politically correct. How does that sound? Good?
Sounds good.
All right. All right, so I want to start with a field that you obviously know a lot more about. You've had more experience with it and kind of introduced me to it a little bit as well. So specifically cryptocurrency, we all know about Bitcoin and shit like that. And there's obviously a lot of other ones floating around. And they've kind of had their peaks and their falls. And recently I know they fell a lot and stuff like that too. So maybe briefly explain what exactly is a cryptocurrency and some of the benefits of it and maybe the downfalls or where it might fail.
Well, cryptocurrency is just a safe way to make transactions.
Just talk a little bit louder for the audio.
Yeah, cryptocurrency is just a safe, usually decentralized way to make transactions.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can't really tax it, but there are different cryptocurrencies that allow an API for tax. Recently, though, banks started banning people who use their bank wallets to buy cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they did that?
I'm not sure. I think it has to do with tax a little bit, though.
But wouldn't the Federal Reserve and stuff more crack down on that than banks, because banks aren't necessarily making that tax money that the government actually would? I mean, I guess.
Well, as far
aspects.
as right now, I think it's completely legal. It's illegal in Hong Kong and China, and a few other places it's legal. But there's also no way that they can surveil this, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they can get a warrant, I guess, but as far as I understand, well, VPNs are also illegal in a lot of those countries too.
Yeah.
In the U.S., VPNs are legal. I think the banks are cracking down on it. I don't know why.
Well, maybe just because it's a way of masking your identity and stuff. So you know, if you don't
almost use it as a bank.
Well, yeah, I thought that was the whole part of it being decentralized, that it's not on one server, it's not, Bank of America, whatever you want to call it, that you can go through it through so many different ways, and then once the transaction's there, it's there, kind of.
Right.
And there's not really a great way to retrace it, or, somebody, it can't, obviously anything's very hackable, but kind of that was the whole thing behind it. Because it was decentralized, governments couldn't have control of it, it wasn't taxed, obviously, in the same way, or people were trying not to do that. So, do you think maybe because it's decentralized, that's like the main positive of it at the same time?
I don't know. It's a universal currency. I think that would be one of the main positives. Another thing is you don't exactly know who's sending you money, so there's no ID or anything like that. It's just a wallet code, wallet key, something like that. And also, another downside, I think is a huge downside, is if you do get hacked, which is very hard because you have a private key and it's very long, letters and numbers and capitals and lowercases.
Somebody would really have to put in a lot of effort to get to it.
Right. If you do get hacked, there's no way of ever knowing who hacked you, getting it back. There's no fraud agency that will help you out there. But as far as I see now, cryptocurrencies are dying. I think a lot of that has to do with government intervention. But it started crashing as soon as the stock market started crashing too.
Yeah, so they're still pretty closely linked, even though they come from two different spheres. And that, I don't know, do you think...
and personally, I think a huge downfall is it's very hard to predict cryptocurrencies because the whales, like the people who own, say someone makes a cryptocurrency, the owner will have 2/3 of the funds, a bunch of millions, maybe billions of dollars worth of cryptocurrencies, and then the other people, just own a third of it.
Pieces of it. Yeah.
So there's no way of predicting when whales move their money in and out of the cryptocurrencies, and that, I think, is rise and fall to the market a lot. So it's, I think, harder to predict in the stock market. I think it's always been a bit volatile.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be like if Apple or Amazon suddenly dropped a bunch of stocks or sold them to different people or something like that. That would obviously,
right?
Because those I think it's 3 or 4 companies. Apple, I know Amazon just reached, I don't know, something like $1 trillion or something on the stock market, or pretty high up there. That's like 10, 15, 20% of the entire market. So if that changes dramatically, it's going to shift everything off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially if it's 75% of the market or 50% of the market.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I see that direction going. It's just kind of increasing and increasing, and they're just going to have more and more power. I mean,
right. As opposed to stocks, though, more people that invest in cryptocurrencies, the higher it's going to go. So people like telling people, hey, buy this one, instead of, some people like to keep their stock trades secret.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like at the same time, too, being able to have that private financial side of your life probably could be a real benefit, but at the same time, there's not really any regulation, or if things go south, nobody's going to be, you can have bankruptcy laws, you can have, fraudulent charges like you were talking about too, and that's not covered. And also maybe that's an argument for kind of, at least some government intervention or some kind of regulation surrounding it.
I think the government's main job for all governments is to keep people safe and provide security.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't do that with cryptocurrencies, because say you're selling something online, or someone else is selling something online, it's very easy to scam them.
Yeah, exactly.
And people make Tumblr accounts, which is you have like hundreds or thousands different cryptocurrency wallets, and it'll just spread an even amount to all of those wallets, and then that main account dissipates, so you really have no clue, which wallet it's going to.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So kind of moving from there too, like what you were talking about with government and kind of the aspects of it too.
Oh, also you can buy illegal stuff very easily. People use it for child pornography.
Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the biggest negative sides to it, like the dark web or whatever you want to call it too. It's just because it's so unregulated, it tends to fall into the hands probably of people who are very skeptical of putting their money in more, I guess, well-founded places, but also just like there's obviously a high negative for people using it for more nefarious kind of reasons.
Right.
Yeah. So kind of pivoting off that and going toward, like you'd said about government and its, it should mainly be for protection of the people too. If we're switching a little bit from maybe just cryptocurrency to more kind of like a reasonable expectation of privacy, especially nowadays too, where, everybody even has an Amazon Echo or something like that too, which obviously I've heard even weird stories about how, you'll say things or have conversations without specifically talking to it, and then it'll show up on your search history or something, you were talking about X product, and then something very similar. I know that's kind of like more of the extreme, but at the same time too,
I know what you mean, but companies like that have like privacy policies. Obviously you can't so they can't send that data to Google without your permission, because that's illegal. It's wiretapping, it's your private property.
But do you still think that, even with like the whole scandal with Facebook selling a lot of its information to, I can't remember the exact name of the other companies and stuff too.
I don't think that's an issue. I never thought that was an issue. I think if they have the terms and conditions, I think it's pretty clear.
But do you think the integrity of companies, especially once they get that big and they have that such share of the market, that there'll always be good faith actors and things like that when regards to privacy or not selling your information? Because the way I see it is that probably. All right, so we were slightly interrupted there, but coming back, talking about aspects of privacy and returns of government intervention, or even just kind of big companies, you don't think that the issue behind it, because there's safeguards in place like privacy policies, and obviously people can be prosecuted for.
I think that's actually beneficial to people if they get. Well, first of all, it creates a market for advertisements.
True, of course.
People get what they look for. So, like, if you're shopping for new shoes and Facebook sees that, you're liking pages that have certain brands of shoes, you'll get ads maybe for, those shoes that you're looking for.
Yeah. But don't you think that there's an aspect of, like, social programming in the sense that the people who have those advertisement monies and trying to push traffic toward their way are going to kind of, I wouldn't say, like, dupe you. Well, I think that's a bigger concern, but even just for, things you're buying and stuff like that too, they're obviously able to kind of control what's in front of your eyes at a greater rate rather than you having more individual choice.
The big concern is, you sort of not having your individual choice. I think it's using their power to push a certain political narrative. Reddit undoubtedly does that a lot. Facebook does that. Only one person, I think it was, what's his name? He ran for president.
Rand Paul, one of the libertarians.
No,
Gary
he was
Johnson.
conservative.
John McCain, Mitt Romney, George W. Bush.
No, Ben Shapiro really likes him.
I have no idea then. Was he in one of the earlier primaries in 2016, before 2016?
He ran with
Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz
asked Facebook about that when
Yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg.
Kind of what I was going back to.
I wish they focused on that more.
Yeah, because that made like pretty big headlines, and it was like very meme worthy for a while too. Is kind of how Zuckerberg was like a robot trying to answer those questions.
I don't think most of, at least the U.S. media would forward that as much. Fox definitely would, but.
Well, no, yeah, I know that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was more they're selling their information and kind of like. But at the same time, those Congress people who asked him questions like did not know what they were talking about. They had like no social media literacy or like even you said, it was just a bunch of old people.
Right, they were on the wrong topic. I think they should have been talking about Facebook using people's information and using their power to silence a certain political side.
Censorship.
Yeah, censorship.
Exactly.
So, for instance, there was this Facebook page that's still up. Facebook said, replied to someone who reported it, and I saw the screenshot of this on Reddit, and it said they don't find that it violates their terms and conditions or violations or anything like that. And it was basically a Facebook page for support of killing Trump, shooting him, assassinating him.
Yeah, those kind of hate, those
hate
groups.
But then you get, like, I think Ted Cruz's Facebook page, just his campaign page, basic, not white supremacist, alt-right, anything like that. That got shut down due to violating their terms and conditions.
And then you can move into the thing, obviously, now, too, is more like Alex Jones got banned off Twitter. I think Facebook as well. I know YouTube and iTunes. And how...
Well, I think, what's her name? Rosie O'Donnell should be banned off Twitter. She told Ben Shapiro to suck his dick. She basically committed a felony. She offered to government officials money to enact a certain law. She's just like, I'll give you $1 million and I'll give you $1 million. And that should have been removed.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, Alex Jones, obviously, I think personally, he has some decent points, but he says them in a very, like, Trumpian way, where it's really hard to actually look at the meaning integrity behind it. But at the same time, if you're going to ban him, you're going to have a dual standard of people that you like that are more left-leaning, obviously, like most social media organizations are, and you're going to keep people on that, like Farrakhan, for example. So, he's been around for a long time, too. I think he runs some big church or something in New York. I might be wrong, but he's, like, openly anti-Semitic, met with Obama, Hillary, like, all those kind of people, Bill Clinton stuff. I think he was just recently at McCain's funeral or something like that, too, sitting next to all those people. And you would think that they would try to distance themselves from somebody who's like openly like very, very anti-Semitic, but his he still has a Twitter account, he still has Facebook pages and stuff, and people just don't care.
Yeah, well, when you talk about Alex Jones, I thought he's kind of like he has a mindset of a social justice warrior, but on the right. And I think basically he takes like small pieces of evidence that don't really lead to the conclusions.
Yeah, he's a conspiracy theorist, obviously.
Yeah, so he just makes extreme conclusions off of basically ample to no evidence. And that's what social justice warriors do. Oh, you're racist. What's the evidence? Oh, it's just my feeling.
You said one thing one time and it's taken out of context. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
So maybe, what kind of solution would that be to get away from those bigger media conglomerates? One reason kind of like I enjoy this podcast and I think it could be very useful in the future for people is that it's my own way of kind of seeking the truth and like talking to other people and learning from them, so that maybe if it goes more in that direction where there's just a fracturing of media from bigger things like CNN and all those kind of things into more of a, not every person has their own truth necessarily, but that they're interpreting it in different ways and trying to figure stuff out.
Right.
And it's much more like on a smaller grassroots level.
I think big companies like Google and Facebook, if they want to use their business to forward a certain agenda, I think, I'm a libertarian, I think it's their company.
Yeah, of course.
I feel like they kind of have a responsibility to not do that, but it's probably going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see government intervention coming into play there, but I think that a solution to that would be them being at least open to their agendas. A lot of the media doesn't do that. CNN thinks they're neutral.
Yeah.
Not.
But what would you say to the argument of people like that should be treated like publishers, where if they say something defaming somebody and it's found out not to be true, that they should be pursued on like libel cases and things like that?
Well,
where any story,
that's fraud, basically.
yeah, but like any story you can post on Facebook and it could be completely 100% BS, but since they're a platform or however you want to define it, that they can just keep pushing, or they can allow the other people to push.
If it's
complete
defamation,
lies.
if it's defamation, definitely it should be removed. But
they don't do that for those kind of things. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, lying isn't illegal.
But lying about somebody's reputation or defaming them, stuff, libel,
Yeah,
libel and slander actually are illegal.
Right, and especially things like making Facebook pages supporting the killing of Trump.
Yeah, I would say that
Assassinating,
that's
not
threatening somebody, and you can't threaten
right.
somebody.
Yeah.
Obviously, but I think it's an interesting argument. I don't see, obviously, since they're just so big, like people aren't going to pick out one person and pursue them from acting like an asshole or anything like that. Too, it's just there's not enough manpower to police that, and I don't think it should be policed. I think people should self-police themselves a lot better.
I think obviously, police agencies are underworked anyway, but if it's like a big company like Google, Facebook, they should definitely allocate the manpower to do that.
But why would they do that? Because that's not making them money. That's costing them money. So if you're looking at it from the end game,
well,
I mean, you might keep...
Either way, it's costing them money.
Not right now, because they're able to just... I mean...
Enforcing nonviolent drug crimes is a huge detriment to our taxes.
Okay.
I think so, at least. Police agencies basically work against their own work. Like, basically, they enforce the law. They try to prevent people from committing more violations, but doesn't that kind of go against, like, they're putting themselves out of work by doing that?
Slightly. I mean, I guess your hope would be, as somebody in that position, that things would get better and you wouldn't have to have as much police work, but at the same time, with a knowledge of human nature and how people interact, I don't think that's going to be a problem, because I still think there's always going to be, obviously, criminals. Some areas, obviously, less than others. But I just don't see, like, to bring it back to the media side of it, I just don't see that being an effective use of their resources, saying, hey, we have this idea that people should, respect others, and the way we'll do that is making sure people don't lie about other people, and taking that into their hands rather than into someone's personal hands. Like, if you have more I would say, virtuous or, like, self-policing kind of mindset, that you're not going to immediately attack those people, or you might attack them, but at least have it some grounded in reality, or like a good counter-argument rather than just, ad hominem the people one after the other.
Well, I think that starts with, like, education, schooling, as well as at home. And in a lot of schools, I've heard they've started positing certain social justice narratives, I think, especially around the city areas, like San Francisco, Los Angeles. They're basically teaching them social justice, what microaggressions are. Microaggressions unequivocally don't exist.
It's just such a
basically
benign. It's a lazy definition, and I think it's a benign issue that people can work out on a more personal level. I don't think people should be taught about that. If you want to learn about that in school or when you're older, that's fine. But like I said, it is kind of definitely, at least in some ways, a form of indoctrination.
Yeah. I don't think microaggression should even exist as a word. A small aggression is an aggression. If there's no evidence for aggression, it's probably not an aggression.
But if you want to tease it out and, like, put it maybe not in just like a verbal way, like verbal assault or something, but in like a physical way, there's a big difference between me, I don't know, pushing you to the ground or like punching you in the face, kicking you in the face. Like,
well, okay,
difference of degrees, not maybe quality quality.
If I start yelling at you right now, I'm just like, put your face on the ground, you stupid bitch. Or if you don't do that, I might kick your ass.
Yeah.
I would say that's me being aggressive.
Yeah, but that's not the same as you attacking me physically.
Right. But I also wouldn't say that's a microaggression.
Yeah, I mean, I still think those are both, I wouldn't say equally as bad, but you wouldn't want to put in that position either way.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, would argue that microaggression is like, there's a woman, working at a tech job or something like that, and just getting paid less immediately.
Yeah, that's a different kind of can of worms too. There's a lot more context need to be taken into account.
There are plenty of women that get paid more than men.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But
women take a lot more time
that could
off,
take.
though.
Yeah, that could be its own podcast. There, I think.
Yeah,
I would want to do something like that.
In every few months or so, I don't know, and then a lot of them get pregnant.
Women do tend to get pregnant sometimes.
Yeah, and by some state laws, Maryland, you have to have leave. They don't have to pay you for leave, but you have to be entitled to getting your job back for a certain amount of time. I think it's, I forget, 12 months.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, if the company wants to offer that to them, I don't see that's a problem. But so yeah, I mean, we're talking.
Well, no, they have to offer them that. That's part of the law in Maryland, at least.
I still think. I don't know if it's necessary to have it by law. I think it should be common practice, just because, obviously, if they're good workers and stuff, nice thing to do.
Ruins the point of capitalism. The point is you.
Yeah, but are you more like laissez-faire, like completely no regulation, just kind of free for all, or do you think there should be some regulation?
Definitely some regulations.
Yeah, so
like don't just dump uranium into the ocean.
That'd be nice.
But if someone is incapable of working, then maybe they shouldn't be working. Or if someone is predicted to be incapable of working, for instance, a woman who, says she wants to have kids sometime and she's in this long-term job, yeah, you should keep your eye on that. And if I'm a boss and I'm like, if she does just as good as a job as the other guys, I'll pay her just as much. That's no problem. And I'll even pay her more if she does better.
Obviously, of course.
There's no, yeah.
Yeah, but I think even in that case scenario, a lot of women who are becoming mothers work well into their pregnancy and take a couple months off, obviously, afterwards, as need be.
But if you have two employees, one's a woman, one's a man, man, say he lives alone, he never wants to have children or anything like that, and he doesn't take a lot of time off.
He's a workaholic, kind of.
Not really, just
okay.
40 hours a week, just does his own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Does a mediocre, good job at work, and so does the woman. But the woman wants to have kids. I would rather hire the man, wouldn't you?
I mean, as a business owner, if you're thinking long-term investment, I would say probably yeah.
Yeah, and it's nothing about like her gender. If she said she's not going to have kids, then for a diversity requirement, I might have the woman, because we have to have diversity requirements in the U.S. So.
All right. Well. Okay. I understand some of those points. I disagree a little bit, but I understand what you're saying. So going off from there, kind of political correctness for sure. I think that falls in the lines of what we were talking about earlier. So I want you to kind of begin with steel manning the position. So build up a reason for it. You could like briefly define it, or at least how you would define it, and then attack it a little. Or would you want me to define it? Would that make it easier?
For political correctness?
Yeah.
Well, I think an interesting perspective that you see, I think, Berkeley, one of the University of California campuses has on their website, they justify physical violence against, I guess you could call it political incorrectness, because if you don't show enough empathy, I guess they might call it, to certain individuals, groups, colors, races, genders, and it causes depression. Depression is a physical condition.
Mm.
So they justify violence, like Antifa justifies violence because not being empathetic towards those groups causes depression.
Yeah.
Which is a physical condition.
So you're saying, at the end of the day, it's not maybe exactly what's said, but what's inflicted later on down the road is kind of like the root cause of why people believe that kind of stuff.
Right.
Is how it's like it's more damaging to their psyche or something like that.
So that's I think the idea behind punch a Nazi. And a Nazi can be just someone who disagrees with you politically.
Yeah. So that's like the best of intentions you could see behind.
Right. And I think where they go wrong there is I don't think a lot of them understand the reason for these different positions.
like I'm a libertarian. A lot of people might call me a Nazi. I'm not. And I think that the way that they're approaching certain things, social justice, I don't think it actually fixes anything. I
agree. It's a majority more of virtue singulars, and there are people who have good intentions but get kind of swept up in the tide of it.
Right.
When they could be doing better work.
So low-income black people make up a lot of the crimes. I think 13% of the population responsible for 52% of the crime.
Roughly.
And I think it's usually the younger aged groups. I think more likely involved.
On crime in general, it's obviously mostly younger people.
Yeah.
Probably in more of our similar age demographic.
Right. But for 13% of the population is black. That's what the 13% of the population.
Yeah. 6-7% of it's male. The other 6-7%.
Right. I don't think the solution to that is social justice, giving black people more privileges than white people have, to equalize, the amount of like wage gap and other things that might exist. I think it's a cultural thing, not black culture, but just like the music that you hear from rappers like
the way you grow up, the values you're put into.
Yeah.
What if it's more kind of like going for the fame and glory rather than maybe working a job you don't want to work just so you can save money and get a better life going on.
There was a book written by a leftist journalist. I forget what it's called, but it basically described why the black community came about to be this way. Basically, I think in the 50s and 60s, I guess you could say white police officers didn't police the black neighborhoods, and they're just like, you do your own thing, no government intervention. That, I think, created gangs, and gangs policed their own neighborhoods for them.
No way.
Obviously, there are no checks and balances in gangs, so
that is true.
They start stealing from people. They have all the guns. They have all the authority. If someone put a gun up to my head and asked for my wallet, I'm not going to fight them for it. I'm not stupid. I'm going to give them my wallet. But who cares if I lose $60? I'm not losing my life or my limb for it. So yeah, that's why I think gang violence exists, and I think the solution to that is more policing in high crime rate areas. Who cares what color the high crime areas are? But there are a lot of studies. I wouldn't say studies, but there's some data. I think the LAPD used an AI to collect data, and it showed like a heat demographic or a heat map. It was like a lot hotter in the areas of black people. They're like, this is where more policing should be done. And then a bunch of social justice warriors made a big point of it. It's like, oh, that's racist. I don't think so. I think that it's racist for them not to be policing, because this is like that's what happens. It's the same idea in the 50s and 60s for them not to be policing black neighborhoods.
No.
That is racism. So you're solving the problem with more policing or law enforcement, keeping people safe.
And that's kind of obviously a negative effect of how a politically correct mindset could affect real life situations.
Right. So you might want to, or someone might want to punch me in the face for saying I think they should police high crime rate neighborhoods. I don't care if they're black or not, but I think a lot of times they are, especially in certain areas.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that's controversial in the fact that it's probably
right
manifested in just obviously looking.
They might want to punch me in the face for that, but I don't think that's their solution is not a solution. I think it worsens the problem. It created the problem, definitely. So
yeah, that's just such a tough, complex issue at the same time too. And I think, I don't know, and a lot of general statistics and stuff too, obviously murders going down, violent crimes going down, all those kind of things, pretty, I don't know exactly fully globally, but definitely in the U.S. and stuff like that too. But switching over to maybe a more political aspect of this too, do you feel now kind of with the rise of obviously Trump, but populism, or kind of more conservative, right-leaning ideologies, that's kind of shifting the social fabric a little bit, and maybe that's why there's some more tension, is because when you have a swing from like one general, everybody feels this way in the society or in, the country, and it comes back to kind of on its way coming back, it's got to fight against kind of what used to be popular, while it makes whatever it is, that kind of political aspect of it more popular now too. Is that the reason why there's kind of a lot more resistance to it, maybe?
I blame it on the media. I don't think that, let's say, there are a lot of alt-right people that support Trump. Actually, I would argue, and it's just speculation, but I'm pretty sure most alt-rights love Trump.
Well, they're just on the right. They're just right to begin with, so
right.
They're just going to vote whatever the closest to
the KKK loves Trump.
Yeah.
I think the media just over-focuses on that, especially CNN. They try to make these speculations like, oh, his dad was in the KKK or arrested at a KKK rally. But I viewed a Snopes article on that, and it's like, yeah, he was arrested at a KKK rally, but there's no evidence that he was part of the rally. Or riot, rather, not rally, I don't think. So,
could be.
You don't really arrest people at rallies if it's not legal.
Peaceful.
If it's peaceful.
Yeah, I
think it's, well,
no, I think it is as well.
I would
because
like
from what we even go ahead.
I would like it if every news media company was just open about their biases. Exactly. And if they just, talked openly about their points and like, this is what we think and this is what this company thinks, hey, let's refute each other's ideas. But that's not how it is. I'm neutral, I'm Fox, and I'm on the right. That's how it is. Yeah. And I think that's why Fox has better ratings than CNN now.
Probably, but no, like I'm a mass communication major and I'm studying media and stuff like that, so that's a lot of thing I always hear repeated is be neutral, present facts on both sides. And then I heard this little kind of tidbit that I think it's a little cliche, but I think there's some merit to it, that if you're trying to get both sides of the story, you'll get to the point where one person says it's raining outside, the other person says it's not. Do you report both sides of that, or do you look outside and see if it's actually raining or not? So, like, what's your duty to be able to understand where you're coming from so you have your own confirmational biases?
Cite your sources. This source says it's raining outside. You might want to be careful of that. Others say that it's not raining outside. Other experts say it's not raining outside. Whatever.
But one of those people, I mean, that's a pretty, black or white statement. One of those people in that situation has to be right and the other one has to be wrong, right? It's either raining or not raining outside. There's really no in between.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if they have multiple sources like that, for something as unpolitically loaded as if it's raining outside, I think they do often, cite different sources for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just a tidbit to kind of pull out, I think, a deeper meaning of, like you said, people should just be like, oh, this is where we're coming from. We're this kind of network. We're this kind of media production crew. We're this kind of a political party. And like you said, just have a good discussion about it and, find the points that you agree on, and then you can disagree. Like, there's no problem. Like, the people who think if we could just get everybody to agree on the same things and stuff, I think that's such a nearsighted...
No one should ever agree on the same things. I think more competition is good because, if others refute each other's points sufficiently enough, like, there's more evidence on this side to support this point than evidence on this side to support this point. Mm-hmm. This side probably is going to look better, going to win, be more realistic, have more utility, and that side's just kind of futile.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely...
That's certainly what I think about my perspective about policing neighborhoods, which I think have a higher rate of black people than the average other neighborhood. Right, because
and then that's, I mean, you could tease that out and say that it necessarily is lower socioeconomic. So, for example, we live in Maryland, so Prince George's County has the largest middle class of African Americans, I believe, in the entire country, or very close. Mm-hmm. So, those places, people that have more money tend to not experience as much crime if they're all in the same context, in that general area. It's the rich section and then the middle class section and the poor section. If they're all in a close area, that's when things tend to go south further because obviously if you don't have anything, you're not stealing from somebody next to you who doesn't have anything as well.
Right, it's the Gini coefficient.
Exactly.
But I think, blacks only make up 13% of the population, and for so many blacks in such low income area, I think that evidences or Yeah, that is
It's
evidence of a huge problem that has happened or something like that. I don't think it has much to do with slavery. I think it has to do with what happened in the 50s and 60s, which, okay, kind of does have to do with slavery, because slavery gave rise to racism, or racism gave rise to slavery, however you want to see it.
Probably both.
Yeah. Either way, it's racist not to be policing these neighborhoods. Why don't you want to reduce the crime rate? It's definitely social justice. I haven't seen any evidence of that helping out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. Convince me if I'm wrong, but I really don't think I am.
Yeah, it's just
because all I hear is, "Oh, let's try this," and they do. And I mean, why would you hire someone who's not qualified for the position just because you want to collectively raise a certain generation?
Yeah, I think you're pulling off of your original point just a little bit, but to go back to that, no, just stay off what you were just saying now, as opposed to the specific racial tensions and other politically correct factors that split into that. What kind of duty do you have to being professional in a job or in a specific environment, as opposed to being that politically correct? Because a lot of times too, at businesses and such like that, you have diversity seminars and stuff you have to go to, or you have a really big human relations department or something like that who feed you these rules and stuff that you have to apply. Like, I know in certain
Google.
It's
Google usually whenever they have a meeting, I think it's open source, sort of, not source, but it's like they just upload it to whatever platform. There's a Google Developers platform.
Yeah, so people can see what's going on.
Right. They have secret meetings. I heard this from James Damore. For diversity. Hey, we're gonna. Oh, and they openly shame white people, and this is right out of James Damore's mouth. So if I'm wrong, blame James Damore. But I don't think he's wrong. He's not lying.
Well, for context too, he previously worked there as was he coding or an engineer or something like that?
He was a senior Google engineer.
Yeah. Okay. So he was in this position. They had a seminar he didn't agree with. He wrote a memo, and then once the memo got released, then he got
totally
kicked out.
Cherry-picked that memo. Have you read the memo?
I have read the memo, but they published it without the sources and the citations as well.
Right,
when he had lots of citations.
But basically they took words out of his mouth, turned it into something else. They totally mischaracterized what he said. There was a few lines about women being more neurotic than men. Neuroticism is just a personality trait. Women are more neurotic than men.
I think it's just there's a connotation to that word.
Women on average are, I think, 55th percentile, and neuroticism, men are 45th.
Yeah, obviously there's a discrepancy there, but I think obviously he was using it in a term, like in a psychological term.
Yeah.
But like in street usage,
and
more of like a street usage, it has a more negative connotation just in general.
Right.
So like maybe I think if he prefaced it more and explained exactly.
It wasn't.
No, of course I know his intentions weren't mal.
Well, what I was going to say is, it wasn't an informal article at all by any means. It was just.
But people don't know that. That's the more specific
People
point.
don't know that because I think the media cherry-picked it and turned it into something that it's not. They mischaracterized what he wrote. And I think they definitely did it on purpose.
Yeah.
CNN did, at least when I saw Fox. Fox's interview with James Damore, I don't think that they... I think they did a very accurate reporting on it.
Is there something to be said, though, where... Obviously, I think you should have the opportunity to speak your mind and if you publish his memo or whatever, but if you work for a certain company... they're going to have a certain bias, certain tendencies that, this is the line I fall more into. Keep your work life at work and keep your personal life personal. Now, obviously, when you have experiences that cross those kind of lines or on iffy moral ground or something, you're going to have to say something if that's what you need to do, if that's what your conscience says. But I think there's something from being said where don't go looking for a fight or a cause or however you want to call it. And obviously, this is... I would say more of an issue on a social justice kind of point where people are like, oh, somebody said the wrong word or phrase at work, now I'm going to report them, and then there's a snowball effect.
I think a huge thing in social justice is also shaming people. I think they make a lot of unjustifiable moral arguments without any evidence to support their views, and I think a lot of people buy moral arguments because rhetoric is a lot more, I guess, attractive, you could say, than logic. So I think, a problem with news channels in general, just news on TV or debates on TV, they're very short, they're like 5 minutes. the way you win a debate is you make the other side look more and
Throw
more
as much
than you.
dirt on them as possible.
Right, but if you have these very long podcasts where you can break down the logic, be like, hey, this isn't what I said, you're kind of mischaracterized what you said, let me just explain to you my point of view, and then maybe if you agree or disagree, you can let me know. Or
yeah, just so much
you
time is
understand what I'm
wasted as
saying.
well,
Right.
not talking about those specific issues that you actually want to talk about, or if you're passionate about, or you're well versed in, because you have to kind of wipe off the dirt that other people are throwing at you just to get to a point where people will see you as any kind of credible at all.
Right.
Which is, it's stupid. It's very stupid, and it's not necessary. I think in any kind of professional context, for sure.
Right. Well, in short debates, stuff like that. I remember the presidential debates. Interrupting people was a huge thing, and I think, well, it's beneficial to get your point across more than others do. Interrupting them when they hear something that they can get them back with, like, oh, I think this is immoral. This is why you're immoral. I'm more moral than you, so vote for me. That's basically what it is. I think moral arguments, people who make moral arguments that are unjustified, there are some that are justified. Like ad hominem can be a logical argument if there's evidence to...
If they've murdered somebody and stuff, and they're saying, hey, don't hurt people. And you're like, oh, this person murdered someone. Like, that's probably relevant.
Right. Or if you stole my beer, and I'm just like, hey, you're a thief because you stole my beer. I'm attacking your character for stealing my beer, but it's totally justified because you did steal my beer, and therefore that does make you a thief.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I wouldn't steal your beer, but...
Even though you paid for it.
I did. I bought these beers, and that's, pretty much. Well, I think we covered a lot of topics. I think this is a good start. I definitely want to have you back again sometime.
Hey, thanks, man.
So we're going to call it there at episode 4, Tech and Political Correctness, and we'll catch you later.
Adios.
Cheers, mate.
This is empty.
I know. Same here.